My name is Sophie Zavaglia, and I am a lawyer. You may have heard a few jokes in the past about lawyers and the truth, but what you may not know is that when you become a lawyer, you swear an oath to defend the Constitution and to never mislead the judge or jury through any false statement of fact or law. More plainly said, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. My career has been dedicated to trying to correct the damage that is done when people try to cover up the truth. For most of my life, I have been preoccupied by the telling of truths. You see, the truth and I have a funny relationship. My life has been defined by the telling of half-truths, and telling a half-truth can sometimes be a whole lie. To explain this further, I have to tell you about my dad. My dad was creative and talented and beautiful. He went to art school with dreams of being a professional artist. But after finding out that I was on the way, he made an honest woman out of my mom, became a carpenter, and worked for my grandpa at the family company. I had inherited my dad's dark hair, blue eyes, and big eyebrows. I also inherited his hatred of bullies and love of 80s new wave. He could make just about anything: furniture, painting, clothing. If you gave him enough time, materials, and pot, he could create it. He sewed me clothing and costumes and even made a bed shaped like a castle for me because I was his princess and his princess needed a castle. He took me on adventures, put ridiculously big bows in my hair, and he laughed at my jokes. Everyone loved my dad. He made people feel special. These happy memories are pockmarked by other not-so-happy memories. I remember him acting sullen and angry at times. I remember being scared of him because he looked so weak at a certain point. I remember the IV stand in our home that he was connected to after he was put on hospice. I remember that in August of 1994, my dad, Scott, died after losing a long battle with cancer. He was 30, I was 7. All I was told was that Dad had cancer. My dad was a prolific smoker of Marlboro Reds, so my 7-year-old mind assumed that he got lung cancer. After my dad died, grief destroyed my family. My mom spiraled into a depression and became addicted to alcohol and opioids. My family went into silence. For years, it seemed to me like they hardly mentioned his name at all. My dad's loss was always present in the background, never to be acknowledged. I learned from their silence that it was not okay to talk about him. I accepted it and I did not ask questions. This went on for years, until the day the letter came. It was a summer afternoon when I was in middle school. My mom said that she didn't mean to announce the results of that letter. She said it was a slip of the tongue brought on by shock. I remember her opening the mail and gasping something about being undetectable. Undetectable? What does that mean? That was the day I learned what a T-cell count was. That was the day I learned that my dad died of cancer, kinda, sorta. That was the day I learned that my dad's cancer was actually lymphoma and it was brought on by AIDS. Along with this bombshell revelation, I was given a grave instruction. I had to stay absolutely silent about his cause of death. I could not tell friends, I could not tell teachers, I could not talk about it at all. I was told explicitly that I couldn't tell anybody because if anybody finds out, they will burn our house down. And that was where the conversation ended. Mom did not share the details of how he was infected, but again, my mind tried to fill the gaps. Even at that young age, I knew about the wild college years my parents had had: drug use, partying, drinking, and clubs. As far as I knew, the only people who got AIDS were gay people, drug users, and blood transfusion recipients. I could rule out gay, and I could rule out blood transfusion, and that left drug users and seemed to check out. For a few more years, that was the truth that I lived. Until I was in high school, and I had another random conversation on another random afternoon, during which my mom dropped another bombshell, maybe by accident, maybe not. Yes, she told me, my dad died of AIDS, but it wasn't a dirty needle that gave it to him. In art school, my dad had sex with women and men. I can only assume that he had been closeted until that point. Unluckily, he made this self-discovery during the early 1980s in Houston, Texas, before AIDS became a household word. It's a very weird experience to learn that your parent had a secret life, especially several years after they die. Again, I was commanded to stay silent. You can tell no one. They will burn our house down. This was the era of don't ask, don't tell, Matthew Shepard, and the moral majority. Both sides of my family were devoutly Christian and swept up in the fervor of the evangelical movement. I went to a private Christian school, think Jesus camp, but all year round. Just as fun as it sounds. Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell were revered mainstays of our community, and AIDS was God's wrath poured out on gays and whores and sinners. While AIDS was a rare topic of conversation at my school, my classmates parroted what they had heard at home. The message was clear. These foul sinners got what they deserved. There was never any thought given to the fact that people with AIDS had families that loved them or that some of them had children. They didn't know that the child of an AIDS victim was among them. They didn't care that my dad was loved by his family and friends. They didn't even know my dad, but they were confident that a person like him deserved what he got. I did the only thing I knew to do. I internalized their disgust. And for years, I did what I was told. I kept the family secret. If my dad's death came up at all, I said he died of cancer. People let the subject come and go. I don't know if they just picked up the vibe that it was a touchy subject for me, or if they just weren't that interested in finding out more. I tried to convince myself that it wasn't a lie because, well, it was half true, but I didn't feel like I was telling the truth. I felt like I was lying. I believed with all my heart that my truth was ugly and needed to be hidden away, that my dad, who I loved so much, needed to be consigned to the silence of the past, that I was a liar, that I was ugly on the inside, and that if people knew the real me, they would reject me. Then, in the summer of 2008, I fell in love. Love has a funny way of creeping up and knocking you in the head and changing the way that you look at life. I met this guy, Hayden. He's here tonight. He was a sharp dresser, he had beautiful green eyes, and he drove a green convertible Mustang. The thing about Hayden that shocked me the most was that he wanted to know about me. He wanted to know who I was, inside and out. I felt like I could tell him anything. We had only been dating a short time before the subject of my dad came up, and unlike almost every conversation that predated this, when he heard that my dad died, he asked why. I froze. Ask me again sometime was the best I could muster. I didn't want to lie, but I wasn't ready to tell the truth. A few months later, he asked again. I ignored every instinct in my body to lie and to hide, and I said it. He died of AIDS. And dear audience, he didn't dump me right then and there. He didn't judge me, he didn't treat me differently, and no one burned my house down. Yeah. That man who loved me treated me exactly the same as he had treated me before. He treated my announcement as it should have been treated, a sad chapter of the past, but nothing that needed to be stigmatized. This rocked my world. I told one person the whole truth, and my whole world didn't end. Despite this, I still find it hard to say out loud. Old habits die hard. I've since told a few close friends and my boss, and now an auditorium full of strangers, almost all of whom I don't know. Truly people I can trust. And every time I've managed to say it, the reaction has been the same: support and love and empathy. It's the reaction that I should get. It's the reaction I wish my dad had gotten. The truth is that my dad was complicated and beautiful and beloved and unlucky. The truth is that because of the stigma against gay people and against AIDS, my life has been defined by shame and living lies. The truth is that right now, in the year of our Lord, 2024, there are people loudly wishing that we could go back to the good old days, hoping and praying that people like my dad would disappear and that people like me should go back into hiding and live in shame. But I reject that. I stand before you and proclaim my truth, my whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I am not ashamed of my dad. I am not ashamed of the virus that took his life, or the fact that he was gay or bisexual or whatever he was. I am ashamed that we accept a society where any person has to hide who they truly are. I am ashamed that we allowed a virus to be so politicized that families were shamed into silence. To my dad, I am so sorry that you felt like you had to hide and that you felt like a failure. The truth is that your community failed you. To all of you, we have the opportunity right now in this moment to live our truths openly. We can embrace love and we can reject shame. We can demand that every person be treated with decency and respect, because I will be damned if I let my children or any children in this country be shamed for living their truth. I will not go back, because the truth matters. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help us God.